Howdy YouTubers. Today I'm going to talk about how I scratch built the Northeast distribution and cold storage facility, as well as the Province and Worcester regional office, since they both come from the same kit. And that kit is the Walthers Modern Cold Storage Warehouse. And you can see from the picture how they intend that to look. It's quite a bit wider than what I have, but you can see the windows on the right there are ultimately what I incorporated into the Province and Worcester facility office, and a couple of the loading bays and the refrigeration system I incorporated into the cold storage facility. So let's talk about that. So it's probably at most a third of the width of the actual structure, and I just cut that using a razor to score it several times, and it snaps pretty easy. So there's two loading bays on this. I wanted to, for our operations perspective, have at least two loading bays to make it more interesting, more of a challenge. And around the loading bays, the whole track is gated with Alkem chainlink fence, and I talk about how to install that in the prior video. So there's a gate, and the gate has stops so it doesn't open too far and doesn't close too far, and there's some signage on the gates. No trespassing, close the gate, stop sign. And then inside the gate is the derailleur. And the reason I put the derailleur on the inside, I used the bamboo sticks to open them, so it's easy to do. But I didn't want them too far out here, since I could, as you can see, I've got photo sensors for the crossing, and if someone's operating and they're putting their hand to open the derailleur, that thing would trigger. So it works fine how it is. The Alkem chain link fencing goes the full length of the track. There's some signage on it. I've got some rust wash. It's spray painted a flat gray to give it that oxidized look. Give you a different view here, and you can see when I'm operating, the cars have to be aligned to the doors, to the loading bay doors, so you can't just dump them and run. You can see that I've put the building on the backdrop, so to make it look like it continues off into the distance, I took a photograph of the actual wall, then I sized it and adjusted the color in PowerPoint and printed it and just stuck that to the wall with a glue stick. And then these roof features that you see are actually photographs of the roof features on some of the other buildings, and did the same thing. I sized them in PowerPoint, printed them, stuck them on the wall there. Other details, this is using evergreen styrene. I put a gutter on the side here, and I may put another gutter on this side, probably not in the middle, but what's painted on this, there's white trim that came with the kit, so that was painted. Let me take these cars out of here, open the gate, open the derailleur, and then I could show you some of the other details. Just clear the crossing. So I painted the lining on the loading bay doors with flat testers black, and these doors are spray painted with a flat white, and then down here using a flat testers silver painted on for the steel. And all the weathering is done with real simply just powdered pigments. I use Vallejo, burnt umber, and this natural iron oxide, which is black. So I get a lot of mileage out of those two colors. And nothing fancy. I didn't paint the building. I just did a few wash marks with that pigment to make it look like there's some stains from rain and soot. The lights came with the kit. They're not lighted. I just painted them and put a little rust wash on them. And then I put numbers on the loading bays. On all my loading bay doors, I put numbers so that when I'm doing an operating session, it's easy to refer to which door we're dropping cars or picking cars up from. These are vents that I added because I wanted a bit more detail to the front, and then a little bit of grunge coming down from underneath. And what those are is I used the Walthers roof detail kit, and I took a couple of these, which are on the ADM facility, and I just cut them and glued those to the side and gave it a nice look. What's going on the roof there, that's the refrigeration system that I showed you on the box, the Walthers box. This is the only place I used a glossy kind of a chrome. It's a chrome spray paint, I think like a Home Depot spray paint. And most of the metallic details I have are kind of a flat silver to gray, like the roof details you see here on the Province and Worcester facility. So I wanted to try something different here. With this refrigeration system, I give it a more of a chrome look. And then I dulled it a little bit on the top here with dull coat, just so it wasn't super shiny. But I think it's kind of cool the way it looks there. A little bit of pigmentation on the fans to give it some grunge, but I don't like everything being super weathered and super aged. Some things are new. Sometimes the building's new. Sometimes components like the refrigeration system are new. The kit has these pipes, and they're normally straight, but since I'm using the full size of these air handlers, and I didn't want to cut them off, I had to have a bend in the pipe. So to do that, I just heated these up with a lighter, flame of a lighter. Basically, when it got soft, I bent them, and you've got that look there. Let's see what else is going on here. There's some scrap there along the side of the building. A couple of old pallets by one of the loading doors. I've got some signs that talk about chalking the wheels before loading. So with operations, what happens is there's actually 4 different operation sequences, but on the first one, this empty would be taken and a full would be replaced, and then this boxcar would just be reset. And on the second session, and I just went over an unaligned switch there. On the second session, this would be traded out for, this empty would be taken and a full boxcar would come in. So what happens in this facility is they take in refrigerated or frozen goods, which is why we have this mechanical reefer here. It's one of these Athertons with the DCC sound card for the carrier refrigeration unit. It cycles on and off. And they also take in dry goods, which the boxcar does here at loading bay 1. So loading bay 1 takes in the dry goods, and loading bay 2 takes in the refrigerated or frozen goods. So on one session, you take this empty, put in a full. You have to get this out of the way, and then reset it. And then on the second session, you take this empty out and put a full. And then there's 2 other sessions that follow with the same sequence, but with different cars. And you can see we're actually in the middle of an operating session. I've got the part 1 video posted. So part 2 is this engine 2007 is waiting to actually swap out that refrigeration car. And you can hear that one running. If the camera picks it up, it's got a sound card also. And while it's down here, it's also going to switch out one of these ADM corn syrup cars. And this is one that I'm going to feature in a separate video post of how I actually designed and scratch built this ADM facility. So that's the cold storage facility. And then the sister building that was made with extra parts is the Province and Worcester Regional Office here in this yard area. And that really is just using extra parts that came from that kit. I think I cut those walls down, if I recall correctly. And that, again, is just with a razor. And I did the same thing on the backdrop, where I took a photograph of the actual wall and then printed it out. So it appears that building continues on into the background, and a picture of a roof feature. I made a door out of styrene, and I put a no parking sign. I made a gutter on that backdrop wall, and then I made gutters with evergreen styrene on the front of the building as well, both sides. These lights over each door, I just scratch built those from scrap plastic I had. And they're not lighted, but they had a nice detail. And then there's an electric box there in the front, and HVAC unit, some other roof features. That HVAC unit was a spare part that came with the cold storage facility building. And this building also has just powdered pigment wash. That sign I made by just taking a logo and sizing it, printing it, and using pigment to make it look a little grungy. Some guys having a chat here. The guy from the office not wanting to get dirty, and the guy here drinking his coffee. There's a P&W tagged Caprice Classic, I guess it is. What else about these buildings? So once the switching is done, you take your bamboo stick normally and close that derailleur, and then close the gate. A bit of an overhead view. And the way I set up the power lines, there's a drop here off this line that goes underground, and you can see there's a transformer in the back. So that drop feeds into the transformer, which powers the facility. It also feeds the transformer here at the ADM facility to power that. So all of my facilities are, in theory, they're powered by one of these utility poles. So you can see the Province and Worcester office, there's a transformer on the pole itself. So it drops the lower voltage line into that facility. And then they pick it up with the power box there. So I like to have a story behind all the details, not just have them there on the layout. So that is the building. The sign on this building was also just done on the printer. I didn't want anything super fancy because it's an industrial park, and that's an industrial facility, so they weren't going to invest a lot in a fancy sign. It's really for the railroad to know what's there and any passersby to see it. So there you have the Northeast distribution and cold storage and the Province and Worcester office, both made from the same kit. And that Walthers kit is by far the largest kit that I have. So inside here, there's a tremendous amount of extra parts. I mean, I could probably build 2 or 3 more buildings. That's the nice thing about these. I mean, if you built out the whole thing, you'd still even have spare parts. They do a good job of giving you a lot of parts. But you can see some of my other Walthers kits. This thing is ginormous. So that is how we kitbashed those 2 buildings. Next up will be the ADM facility. But as usual, I hope you found that enjoyable. I hope you find it useful, and your support is always appreciated. So as always, please like and subscribe. Cheers.